Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well today on this Monday, and
All
you
Mondays.
are this Monday of all Mondays. Um, yeah, the Christmas season is coming up, and the gifts just keep giving, I guess. So we are going to be looking at this video. This is, by the way, Maintaining Frame. Number 131, it's time for the church to be led by women. I mean, that was the title I chose. I thought it's basically the argument that's being made.
Can I just float an idea?
Okay.
All right. So I did a video on basically how we use this condemnation of men's sexuality in order to justify women's moral superiority. And in that video, I suggested that a lot of religion is really about giving men and masculinity a chance. You know what I mean? In the greater sense. And the thing is that men do, I know this sounds really contrary to everything everybody's taught, but men actually do cooperate in very elaborate ways and systemic ways, which human beings are very interesting because cooperation appears to be something that is attractive to women. I know that sounds really weird. It's when men cooperate. So if you expose men to the pheromones, well, the alleged pheromones, because we haven't actually identified pheromones in humans. But if you expose them to the secretions, doesn't sound as nice, of fertile women, they tend to cooperate more with other men. So it's the suggestion there is that cooperation is selected for in terms of reproduction. And because of that, human men cooperate very well. And it's got its downside because, war is a huge amount of cooperation to destroy the other side. But this evolution has enabled the human race to survive. This ability for men to cooperate has enabled the human race to survive. And I think religion is just the means by which we get that cooperation at its highest level so that it can build the society around us. And this idea of men leading in the religion, it's not really, it has a really functional purpose because I think women in and of themselves, I don't think that they completely understand the systems that arise out of that high degree of cooperation and how people in those kinds of systems, men in those kinds of systems communicate. So religion is about saying, hey, sometimes you need to take a back seat because women tend to have a lot of social power and they tend to control the social milieu and people's, perceptions of things. And they're the ones that, for example, if you watch a movie, something happens, what does the director cut to? A woman responding to that thing happening. Women sort of set the emotional tone of events. So women can utterly destroy men. They can utterly destroy men's connection to society. They can utterly destroy this entire cooperative edifice that the women themselves rely on. And I think religion is about, hey, don't do that. It's not to your own benefit, and it's not to men's benefit, but it's even less to your own benefit, ladies. So just take a back seat. Sometimes recognize that men know what they're doing, and stow the social power for a bit. And I think that that's been a way that we've managed to make very advanced and productive civilizations. And hopefully that wasn't too confusing. And I will let you speak.
I get it. But let's get into the video. Before we do, I'm going to ask you guys to please hit like on the stream. It really helps us with the algorithm so more people reach it, especially if you're doing it while we're live on the stream. So
and don't
please
forget
do that.
Put like on the vertical chat too if you're on.
Yeah, I'm talking about both streams, the vertical and the horizontal.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to be looking at this. Oh, and also, if you happen to be a drone the size of an SUV, also hit like and help broadcast this, wherever you are, fed drone. But anyway, let's
specific. I feel like I missed.
There are supposedly 50 drones the size of SUVs flying around the eastern seaboard and there's a lot of discussion about whether or not is an Iranian attack or it is aliens, but I think it's just our government trying to make more money. So anyway,
part of the alphabet agency just doing more
yeah,
crazy,
it's just another alphabet agency person doing what they do.
more crazy, alphabet shenanigans.
So anyway, let's get into the video. This is from Manifestelle. It's called "I'm Glad I'm Not Mormon," and it talks about essentially like leadership in the church. This is going to be a conversation on some level about religion. If you're not religious, though, I think you should listen anyway, because it really isn't about that. You know, as I say, the thing is not actually about the thing. And don't be distracted by that. So, but anyway, before I do, Allison, you should probably do the things.
Yeah, okay, I'll do
Speaking
the
of things.
If you would like to send us a tip, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And with that tip, you can send a comment. It's sort of the best way for you to send those comments because, yeah, you don't have to put it through YouTube's comment thresher system, and we get the full benefit of whatever tip you send. So feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And also, if you want to support the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/support. And that's the very best way for you to support the show, because I don't have to deal with some things that that involve the Canadian government. And so feedthebadger.com/support to support the show. Oh God, I've spent the last week dealing with GST stuff, and it's been anyway, feedthebadger.com/support to help us out. And I want to thank Richard for making the suggestion of this show. What did you
Thank you, Richard.
Is that genuine?
Yeah.
No.
All right. Let's see. I'm gonna jump to where she starts talking. So let me see here. All right. Let's get to we'll play the intro. Let's just play the intro. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start it.
I've been praying to God, thanking him. Thank you for not making me Mormon. Because, oh my God, that would suck.
Women were made to desire their husbands and let them rule. Women were to trust God and wait for their perfect husband. Men's voices were public, while women's voices were private. When women did take charge, it was either sinful or because men had failed to do their jobs.
I will make way more than he will ever make. She's the provider. Yes.
A woman's position was supportive and secondary, unless she had to temporarily step into leadership when men could not.
Complementarian theology, males.
Women's position in greater society is still secondary. Like, let's be honest here. You're not storming the beaches of utilities and all of the stuff that keeps society running. You're still secondary. You're still mostly going into nursing, childcare, speech therapy, maybe some clerk jobs. You're still doing the same jobs that you did 100 years ago. And honestly, any woman who says, wow, we don't want to be secondary. Okay, you don't want to be secondary. Don't go after the CEO positions. Go after the garbage positions. Go after the sewer work. Go after the positions that make life possible. Otherwise, you are secondary. I mean, this is what's infuriating. It's like they're like, oh, we don't want to be secondary, but you're not making any effort not to be. And then you blame the Mormons for being like, oh, women are secondary, observable reality. The Mormons have observed reality. Women don't want to be in the positions of high risk, discomfort, and difficulty, and lots of work. They don't want those positions. And yet those are the positions that make all the other roles possible. And the Mormons look at this and they say, oh, okay, well, that's a thing. And you guys have not changed that thing. You know, and I'm pretty sure the women who are picking up the garbage are bitching on YouTube channels. Okay. So yep. I just wanted to say that because it's like they're all like, oh, Mormons say women are secondary. Yeah, well, you haven't challenged that. You still are secondary.
I seriously doubt that anyways. I seriously doubt it.
No, I doubt it. Yeah.
They're just claiming it because Well, wait till you find out what her resource is for all of this, all of these assumptions. But
Can I make just a qualification of what I'm saying? If you see the world in terms of work being what determines what's primary and secondary, after 70 years of feminism, women are still in secondary roles, right? And you still don't want the primary roles, because those primary roles come with costs that most women don't want to bear, and that's fine. But can we just be honest? Now, but that is just an observation based on the idea of putting work first. I don't think Mormons do. I don't think Mormons think that women are lesser than men. Maybe in the context of work, they are secondary, but do Mormons really think that women are lesser than men? I don't know. Like,
no.
does that even jive?
I don't know for sure, but I doubt it. I know a couple of Mormons that live around here, and they seem, of course, the wives are, they feel loved, and the husbands love them, and like that. And I don't really,
And they're
it's just like any other marriage. Like when I learned they were Mormons, I was kind of, I like, they just seem like everybody else.
Yeah.
So,
but if they do have a statement, is it that like women are secondary overall, or that women are secondary in work and primary in the home? Like, I don't know.
I don't even think they get into it to that degree. It's just
I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, let's play more of this.
Headship, biblical womanhood, all of that is wrong.
This was my understanding of biblical womanhood. Elizabeth Elliot famously wrote that femininity receives. Women surrender, help, and respond, while husbands provide, protect, and initiate.
Okay,
A biblical woman.
But you okay, but this is a reciprocal relationship. You're just focusing on the one. And incidentally, how does adopting a position of complete victimhood anything but surrender? It's like the worst kind of surrender, because you're saying all you can do is surrender to men and they're awful. They're saying you surrender to men, but he has reciprocal obligations of protection and provision. He's got to step in front of the world to protect you. And instead, you have replaced I surrender to men and they protect me with I surrender to men and they're horrible. Congratulations. I'm sure that's great for your self-esteem. Again, nothing changes. Nothing has changed. You've done nothing. Your revolution is a wet fart. Okay, let's keep going.
All right.
Is a submissive woman.
Hey, bestie.
Okay, let me just jump ahead to her first real point.
Why do I feel like I'm being covered with venom whenever she says that?
I know. It's her tagline. She plays a character.
Yeah,
so
she looks so evil. Like,
yeah,
hey,
she likes that. She likes
I'm
that.
the Pied Piper ass taking you to your doom. Ugh.
Well, yeah. I guess okay. Well, let's jump ahead. So she basically sets up the topic, and she talks about what she is responding to or using as her sort of like baseline to discuss this topic from is a reality TV show. No, I'm not kidding. A reality TV show called The Real Lives of Mormon, or Real Housewives of Mormons. I don't know. It's a Mormon housewife reality TV show. Okay. Reality TV. Because I think reality TV is fake. No, it is fake most of the time. So she's looking, and here's how you know it's fake, by the way. So it's like The Real Housewives of Mormon Lives or something like that. And it's on Hulu, and Hulu is owned by Disney. So it's a Disney show about Mormons. Do you think that it's going to be honest about that? Do you think that it's going to be real? So we have to understand the context. We're already talking about 2 layers of fake before Manifestelle puts her own fake on top of it, and then she's going to respond to it like it's real, because you know what's funny, actually, and we're going to get into this more, but you know what's funny? Manifestelle's video about why women should be leaders in churches, like pastors and bishops and so on. The video that she makes is proof of why they shouldn't be. And so, and it's her because of the way that essentially where she pulls all of her references and how she builds her argument. So, but anyway, I'm going to jump ahead to where she starts talking about a book called The Making of Biblical Womanhood, which is, if I remember correctly, it is written by a feminist, so it is already full of shit. In the same way that like Julie Bindel, I think it was it Julie Bindel that we responded to the other day. She was supposedly raised Catholic, so therefore she understands, like the thing that she's criticizing, but she's literally a political lesbian. And I don't even say that to make fun of her. That's like what she is. So how could she possibly have anything to say that's positive about Catholicism or even fair? But anyway, so she's talking about this book called the Making, or by Beth Allison Barr. If you can look her up if you want to see what else she's done. Called The Making of Biblical Womanhood: How the Subjugation of Women Became Gospel Truth. The subjugation of women. How the subjugation of women became gospel truth. Okay. So let's play some more of this and listen to her points about it.
Mystic view of the original teachings of the Bible. And when I read this book, let me tell you, my spoiled girly mind was blown. She was blown, shattered, and floating around in the galaxy. And I had to piece it all back together so I can make today's class. Now we have a lot to cover, but before we get into it.
All right. So she said that this book paints a more optimistic view on essentially women in the religious context. Okay, which basically means a feminist view, which basically means it's anti-religious. It's actually the worst kind of feminism in a way, because it's taking something that should be like whoever wants to, they'll live that way, they should, and then they intentionally go through the Bible, misinterpret things, take it out of context, write whatever they want about it, and then say, look, ladies, you're supposed to take this thing over and burn it all down. And that's kind of like, I'm sorry to say, guys, if you're not religious, but you're wondering what happened to our culture, it started with the church. And this has been going on for a long time. And Manifestelle is just saying we're not done yet, basically. Yeah. I mean, she doesn't know it. She probably thinks that it's still patriarchal or whatever, but you can look at Protestant churches across the country that have been paused by like female deacons and female pastors that brought their emotionality and their progressive values into the church and basically ate it from the inside out, making it useless, especially as a moral guard against like, sinful behavior that women and men, we all engage in it, but it essentially permits women more so. But anyway, I'm gonna get off my high horse about that. That's not what this is about, because the thing is not about the thing, right? It's only about the revolution.
Can I just point something out?
Yeah,
when
go ahead.
Men create men-led religions, they have provisions. They say things like, please listen to us, ladies, and also in response, we will protect and provide for you. So when men are in charge, they take care of women, and they say things like, you must sacrifice for your wife like Christ sacrificed for the church, which is pretty significant sacrifice if you think about it. So when men are in charge, they still maintain an expectation of sacrifice for the protection and provision of women. When women are in charge, do they turn around and say, hey, we need to use whatever powers we have as women to protect and provide for our fellow male citizens? No. So when women are in charge, one half of the human race is shoved into the cold. And I can tell because, look, does Manifestelle express any responsibility for the half of the human race that she is expected to have control over? No. Yet when men are in power, they say things like men should protect women. Every single male-led religion has the expectation that men protect women. Sometimes it's in the context of their greater social group, but that men protect women, that men provide for women in situations where men have jobs that only they can have. And in fact, the more men are expected to lead, the more they're expected to sacrifice. And yet in women-led communities and religions, that doesn't exist. Men just float off into the cold because for whatever reason, women don't seem to have the expectation that they should protect and provide for men. Maybe it's you can see it in like Native communities. I don't know. I would have to look more closely at it, but for the most part, when women are in charge, they don't think to themselves, hey, you know, if I'm in charge and there are men who aren't, I should be helping them out. No. And that's a really big problem. And in fact, if you think about it, that one thing could explain why men-led everything succeeds over women-led anything. Because men in power make sure that women are taken care of. That means everybody in society has something. But when women are in power, who do they take care of? And you can't argue with that, because here is Manifestelle saying this. I guess she does. At any moment does she say, well, now that we're in power, doesn't that means we have responsibility for men who aren't? No. And like I said, a society that takes care of more people is more successful than a society that takes care of less. Therefore, female-led societies are going to fail. Okay. And they have. All right. I'm going to get off my high horse.
All right. No, it's okay. Let's listen to more. So she's talking about this book and this new direction or this new spin that she's gotten out of it.
But I need you to hit the like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you never miss a Spoiled Girlie episode. With that being said, let's get into it. Ever since the Netflix reality TV show, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives came out, we have been in our Mormon discourse era. And this video that I'm gonna play,
Sorry, it's just
those are some
the way
really
the
salaciously
Zoomer talk just drives me up the wall. We're in our Mormon discourse era. What the hell does that mean?
Oh, God.
Okay.
Well, it means we're talking about this now.
Yeah, right. But this
not
could change. This could
conversation.
change, right?
Maybe it's an allusion to how mercurial their sense of self is, if they have one. It's like you're having a conversation. It's not a fucking era.
Yeah.
You have multiple. In fact, you can have multiple conversations at once. Are you having multiple eras at once? Freaking! It's just the total particleization of human consciousness. It's bizarre.
It is.
But the point, one thing I wanted to point out is those are some seriously salacious female Mormons. Like that looks like this is the Mormon pinup calendar.
It's Disney. I'm saying, like it's Disney.
Well,
I don't think there's anything authentic coming out of that.
So Disney is definitely not synonymous with family friendly anymore.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Okay. So let's keep going.
captures how a lot of women feel about it.
Watching Secret Lives of Mormon Wives has made me realize that, you know what, your life could be going so bad, but at least you're not Mormon. Just think about that. And am I being mean? I am, okay? If I was Mormon, I'm 21, I would probably have been married and had like a child or like multiple children at this point. And what a scary thought that is. Like the past 4 days,
I just want to point out,
thanking him. Thank you.
Any traditionalists,
I've been praying.
Indians,
Sorry.
Any traditionalists from India, this is what your daughters turn into after a generation. So reconsider moving. Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry. You come from a very traditionalist culture. And I don't even think Mormon is that bad. Why did we go back to the beginning?
It was an accident. I was trying to like pause it, and then my mouse sometimes just jets off someplace.
There's a mind of its
So
own.
I gotta like sometimes that happens. I kind of hate it. Okay, so I think this is right where I am. Okay. So yes, you're right. I mean, she's a modern Indian woman living in the West, and so the women
and
in
the
particular
disease spreads.
Yeah.
Like, the absolute destruction. Like, what does it say that women gain rights and stop breeding? Like, literally,
That's a good question.
You are saying that women's rights, is incompatible with survival as a species. That is why are you doing this? Okay, anyway, let's
they never mind. Let's just play some more.
Thought that is. Like the past 4 days, I've been praying to God, thanking him. Thank you for not making me Mormon. Because, oh my God, that would suck.
I mean,
Boy,
that's
you're
a take. And when you want...
What?
just a boring human, like, oh, thank God I'm not being a victim of this.
But yeah, but that's good enough for Manifestelle. She's just like, that's what I wanted to hear, was someone who, if she grew up Mormon, probably wouldn't mind being Mormon. But because she's on the outside looking in, and she's also looking at this world through a lens made by a company that is openly hostile to Christians. Like, they're openly hostile to them. Like, they're staffed by like queer gay race communists. Like, that's who works at Disney now, who runs Disney now. Do you think they're going to give you a fair shake on like whatever, if you're not towing the line with them? And then this woman watches it in that context, and she's like, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not one of those. Well, you don't know that because you never were that. You're just looking at reality TV and making judgments. This is literally the reason why like women shouldn't be in positions of power in this regard, because they're looking at, like, can you imagine someone in leadership using reality TV as the basis for policy? Well, I saw this reality show and you Mormons need to be reined in, so I'm going to take away your rights. Like, what? Yeah. I mean, but that's what's happening. That's what this is.
Yeah,
Sorry.
She's got a little bit of the Asian grandma look. Someone was mentioning in the chat right here. But there was an individual who sent a text. I don't know if this is genuine, but it's from Vav, and he or she says, "Can you wish happy birthday to my mom? She's in the military and will be deployed to Egypt tomorrow." I'm not sure if I should say her name because this isn't exactly a channel that you necessarily want to be associated with, but Sergeant Annie. So happy birthday to Sergeant Annie, and thank you for your service. Honestly, my position is that women either need to support men in doing the work, or they need to do it themselves, right? Or they need to take part in doing it themselves. And maybe if they did take part in doing it themselves a little bit, many more of them would understand the work and realize that it's actually a pretty privileged position to be just supporting it rather than having to do it. Anyway, so thank you. Happy birthday. Hopefully I haven't destroyed your life by mentioning part of your name. Okay.
All right, let's keep going.
Yep.
Watch the show, it's kind of hard to disagree with her. The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives follows a group of young women, all mothers and some wives, as they navigate their faith, their careers, their identities, and marriages and relationships, and children and homemaking. Like, that's a lot of things to navigate and juggle and work on. And they're all in this group.
That's life. It's funny, she says all that, but like in this time in the West, if you are a woman and you are married to a man and you have children, you are doing those things already. You don't have to be Mormon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mormons, they have to navigate eating.
They have more kids.
Getting water, and they have to
they
navigate breathing and.
I know, and like getting 8 hours of sleep and 3 square meals, and
maybe even having pets. Oh my God, those Mormons just crushing lives.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right. Anyway.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Called Mom Talk.
What?
I interrupted you, so I feel bad.
No, it's okay. I'm gonna. I'm just saying, like, Manifestelle is showing her ass. She's basically saying, I don't want to like have a life where I have to work. And these women are doing that. They're doing the thing that most normal people do, which is, get married, start a family, and work.
They're just living their life. You know what I wonder is that one thing that occurs to me is that Mormon, and actually religion in general, also reins in women's competition with each other, which means that these Mormon women may actually be, because of their faith, more capable of helping and providing for each other as they go through their life. And I wonder if this is not jealousy or envy. Sorry, I'd use the wrong term. Envy. If this is not also motivated by envy. Because there was that one video that I think Better Bachelor shared, and they were a lot of the red pill was upset about it. I was just like, I was grossed out because they were handling each other's pee, but other than that, I was like, You know, it's not something I would do, but then I'm a weird hermit and I
Mhm.
don't understand social stuff very well. But there were just Mormon women who were taking joy in each other's. At least one person said this, that they were just Mormon women taking joy in each other, forming families. You know, being happy for each other and supporting each other. You know, and that's the thing. That's the other thing that religion does by making women responsible and also by making women listen to men. They gain some of the skills that men have making and keeping friendships. That in turn becomes about, you know, having the self-discipline to not destroy your friendships with envy and not destroy your friendships because another woman has something that you want or to try to take that from her, to actually learn to be a good friend. This is something that I've noticed with religion. I mean, maybe there's a way you can make it humanist, but this idea that you are responsible to others can also make you a good friend. And maybe that's what Mormonism has done for these women. Because it's so far, all that they've said, all they've complained about is that Mormons have to deal with life. Well, yes, well, we all do. The question is, does their Mormonism make it easier for them to deal with that life and to live a life of dignity and respect for themselves and others? Let's find out.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going.
And they're influencers, and for the most part, they're the breadwinners for their families. And as we talked about in a past class, Mormons are born and bred to be influencers due to their high standards and expectations of beauty, and because of their cultural practices of journaling and documenting their lives.
Yeah, I remember when the Mormons first came to America and they were like, we're going to be influencers. We're going to make that our whole thing. I mean, like, no, I mean, like, Mormons have, like, they believe in, they take the, what I think, because I don't know for sure, because I never really looked into it too much, but what I believe is that at the end of Genesis, or like when, not the end of Genesis, but after the fall, okay, God tells Adam to essentially, as like part of his uh path to retribution, is to rebuild the Garden of Eden in the world, right? To grow continue the growth of the garden outside. And I think the Mormons and Protestants generally, like, they take that to heart as to like try to, make glorify God through their production of whatever it is. Like that's why they stay, are really good at starting businesses and things like that. Mormons don't just have large families because they're encouraged to, like, what is it, go forth and multiply, but also to turn that family into a business. Like the people in the family all work in the business together and they network with other Mormon families and businesses.
Yeah, they're some
I
of the
think
most successful.
Yeah, they're very
They're one of the most successful
prolific.
cultural groups. So they're
Yeah.
making bank, like a lot of them.
Yeah, they're very, that's what I'm saying. They do very well. And a lot of it has to do with their close knit, family structure. And that makes them successful. And they also network with each other. And I think that uh Manifestelle is, well, I don't know. She thinks that it equals influence, which I think is just a really shallow way to look at it.
I'm wondering if this is really envy. And once again, she's schlepping her toxic ass into a community that's functional and
Yeah.
dripping poison all over it. Because
Yeah.
I know that she's probably okay. All right, I want, in the interest of actually not having to look at her for the next 3 hours, I will be quiet and let you find the next time code. Unless,
all right, I can jump ahead, but I got a super
Please
chow
do.
from Richard. Richard Bier gave us a super chow for $5. And he says that woman's prayer, that woman's prayer of thanksgiving for not being made a Mormon sounds remarkably like the prayer of the Pharisee in the parable that Jesus told. However, the second part was that of the prayer of the tax collector asking for mercy upon a sinner. Thank you for that, Richard. Okay, so let me just make sure I didn't miss any other super chows or anything. I think we're good. So we're gonna continue. Let me jump to the next bit here. So let's go to commentary on the secret lives of Mormon wives. Oh, I was just getting to that point, I think.
I mean, can we?
That's
Yeah,
right
let's
here.
get to an
And
actual.
I guess one of the more satisfying.
What?
I said, let's get to an actual thesis, like a statement.
Okay. All right. Let me jump ahead then.
Oh no! You know what? Let's see what she says about what the one
All right.
most satisfying. Let's just okay. All right.
The more satisfying aspects of watching the show. Yeah.
That makes me
So
curious.
here's the thing too. Okay. She thinks the women on the show are oppressed because they have to juggle all of these different, you could say, responsibilities. Whoa, what's that, ladies? And that means it's really hard. So they must be oppressed, and their men must be part of the problem. But she loves the show, and she can't stop watching it. So she finds it very satisfying to watch. What does that mean? Okay, but and it's not because she's crying because they're so oppressed, but there is like she's fascinated by it, and she probably is jealous, like Allison said.
Envious.
But let's keep going. Yeah, envious.
Satisfying aspects of watching this show is realizing that Mormons, they're just like us. Okay.
What a
These
surprise.
women, they juggle their
Yeah, they're exactly not surprising. They juggle their. I don't know.
Again.
She says, yeah. Go ahead.
Again, like yes, they're dealing with exactly the same things as everybody else is. The question is, does their Mormon faith and their Mormon community help them or hinder them?
Yeah.
Because you can live in a cult without actually living in a cult compound. And the way that you do that is by believing crap that almost becomes a parasite on your life, like men oppress women. You know, that puts you in a cult. You have cultish beliefs about the world that you maintain without even having a cult leader. And it doesn't help you manage your life. In fact, it does the reverse. So the real question is, does whatever the Mormons do help them get through the day? I mean, they're a pretty damn successful community.
Yep. They are. They're focused.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's keep going.
like us, okay? These women, they juggle their faith, their family, they're figuring out who they really are, especially at such a young age, like early 20s, you know, like they're questioning traditional gender roles. They're experiencing a lot of things for the first time. They're under this pressure to be the perfect wife while giving so much grace to their husbands who don't for 1 second question themselves if they're the perfect husbands.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah,
You
come on
fucking
now.
moron. I'm sure that they actually do. They just may not express it because that would be burdening people.
Yeah. I mean, well, again, you
Well,
know,
it's
Yeah.
a really, if it's, I mean, there's an argument to be made that Mormonism isn't Christianity, but if it does follow the Bible to any degree, you know, a husband has to sacrifice for his wife like crap. That's a lot of perfection to live up to there, girly. You don't think that's a little bit of pressure? Right?
Yep.
And she just completely omits that because the focus isn't on the men. The men are just off being probably pretty stoic about their lives. You know,
yeah, I guess the husbands make appearances, but the show centers on the women.
And the other
So
thing
there,
is that
it makes sense that there would be more sympathetic the way they would shoot it
yeah,
to the women.
exactly. But there's
Again, Disney, Hulu, feminist.
there's
So
something
go ahead.
sordid there, you know, and I'm not saying that these Mormons are necessarily, but there is an aspect to Mormon religion when you take it to its extreme and you talk about these sort of cultish Mormon communes. In these cultish Mormon communes, there are boys being kicked out for any imperfection because they're not wanted. Don't give me this crap. And you don't even know anything about this Manifestelle. But there is pressure.
You're talking about Allison. She watches a reality TV show about it.
There is pressure put on
That's essentially an academic source.
There is pressure put on men in Mormon communities. Of course, the general Mormon communities probably distance themselves from these extremists, but it's an extremist, right? These are extremists. That means they're an extreme of something. And that extreme is the expectation of perfection put on Mormon boys and men. And if in extreme Mormon communities, if boys don't live up to that perfection, boop, gone. They're out of the community. Yep. They're dropped in the middle of nowhere on the roadside to go fend for themselves. So fucking shove it, Manifestelle, you ignoramus. Okay.
Yep. I got a Rumble rant from Nova Fan for $1, and he says Mormon influencers be like, "Today I got 1 million people to look through 1 million Bibles to find $1 million." Parody of Mr. Beast type videos. It's pretty good. So I mean, I think that they're just savvy business people. So they're like, well, we're already doing all this stuff. Why don't we put it on Instagram and make more money? And they do. So, but anyway, so I'll play a little bit more of this because she says these women are questioning their gender roles. And that's another thing that I thought was interesting because we're talking about a supposed reality TV show about the Mormon housewives, the real lives of Mormon wives, or whatever it's called. And they're on the show because of course it's reality TV, so something dramatic happens every episode, right? At least one thing, if not multiple things, because it gets women hooked in, man. Like, women love reality TV in the same way they love soap operas. They just like to talk about, or they like to watch other people's like social dynamics play. I know that Allison's weird and doesn't do that, but like,
No,
this is what you do.
I do.
Okay.
I do actually. Like, I still have a few estrogen receptors in my body. Like, I'm not completely.
Well, I don't know if you watch reality TV.
No, I don't watch reality TV. What I watch,
Lindsay watches some of it, but it's like the the super tragic stuff, like the hoarders, and like
I don't really watch reality TV, but what I like is historical drama.
Yeah, that's not reality TV.
Fair enough.
Or things or like, because soap operas were kind of reality. I mean, they still exist, but they're obviously not real. But like, reality TV is pretending to be real, because I don't think it is. I don't think it ever was, honestly. Remember that it started with that MTV show, The Real World. And I think everybody on that was fake. They were all trying to be actors and actresses, and they were just doing that to like get their foot in the door. And ever since then, it's just been more fake. So you have this show, The Real Lives of Mormon Housewives. It's not real. They're pretending to be Mormons, and they got like guys pretending with them, or maybe some of them are, but they know this is all like, we're just going to do all this for the cameras. They're just doing stuff for the cameras. And then you have and on the show, which is produced by Disney, which is important. The women are on there going, I don't know about gender roles. What do you think about gender roles? And they're like talking about this stuff in this, probably meta way, so that women that are watching are like, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm a liberated feminist woman. And that's the purpose of it. Like, it's propaganda as always. And Manifestelle is just drinking it like the poison Kool-Aid, as Bane 666 used to say. And she's just like, I'm going to share this I just had a revelation. These women on this fake TV show are becoming feminists just like me. It makes perfect sense. And the idea that they would have to, like, if that being a mother and a wife is at all holding any woman to any standards, well, that's just oppression, guys. I got to share this with the ladies in the world. And she goes out as like what is it, like a hand-me-down of a hand-me-down, essentially. She's taking propaganda and turning it into like secondhand propaganda for her girlfriends that watch, so that they could turn into third-hand propaganda. That's what's happening. It's like the whole, and it's sad because she thinks that she's discovered something. And in so doing, by the way, she proves why women shouldn't be in like higher positions in the church, which is why the church, at least in terms of like the Catholic and other apostolic, institutions like the Orthodox and the Catholics, they're trying really hard to like keep them out. The Catholics are failing, by the way, but the Orthodox is doing better. I actually talked with my priest, Father Jeremy, and he said that there are people pushing for female deacons. Deacons are like, they're not priests, but they like help in the service. And he was like, but I don't think that's a good idea. And I was like, oh no.
Well, there's the thing. Like,
as soon as you get in, it's not gonna stop. Like, he had to like tell them, because in Orthodox services, the women have to like cover their heads in like a scarf, right? Like a head, it's like a head covering. And Lindsay doesn't have a problem doing that. But the other women were like, they were starting to get feisty. And he was like, well, this is what we do. And there were standards on the men too. It wasn't like a one-way thing, right? but yeah, I mean, like it's already been like Protestant churches have already been paused by this, and I think that the Catholic
Okay,
orthos are looking at that
can
and
I
like,
explain the logic of this? Taking
yeah,
it
go
all
ahead.
out of the religious? All right. Men evolved alongside women, right? Women can totally shut men down and shut them out and kick them out with their social power because they are the first experience of belonging of every human being. They set down the emotional habits that create culture, right? You don't need female deacons because you have mothers, right? Or there has to be some place where men get unique authority or masculinity as a part of your toolkit, as a community, as a society, disappears, right? This is all because women are powerful enough socially to absolutely destroy all of men's standing. So you have to do this, ladies, or you lose masculinity. And we are witnessing what happens when masculinity recedes from society in the West, when we are no longer capable of using that toolkit. No, and it's not, you can look at it top down, but the top down thing is also, it's not necessarily masculine either. You can't make top down fixes all the time. You can't always look to a strong man to make things better for you. You have to realize that the true purpose or the true need, where masculinity is needed, is the local, is the community, is the family. All right? You need it on this level, and you need to respect it. And that's why you need deacons to be male. Okay? So men have a voice. Men have a place where they get moral recognition that what they say matters and should be listened to. That's it. And it's only because, get this, we evolved to have two different types of human. Okay? We evolved male humans and we evolved female humans. And I guess you can argue that there's some, a small amount in between. Let's not deal with that. For the most part, male and female. Each of these has a particular approach to how they deal with the world around them. Do you think that men would have persisted generation after generation after generation if their way of dealing with the world wasn't important to human survival? No. So what you do when you don't give men moral authority, unique moral authority as men, is you push that out of your society, and then eventually your society collapses, which is why we don't have a civilization that doesn't invest a unique place for men to have moral authority. And you don't need that for women because, again, women get moral authority from being mothers, from being that first experience of human belonging and basically God to an infant. All right? That's how it works. You want to work against that? Well, congratulations. You're going to inherit a pile of rubble. All right.
So you should read the writings of Apostle Paul. They're considered the most controversial of all of the books, and the stuff that Paul wrote about women is it's pretty awesome. And Paul Elam has been reading Paul a lot. Let's just put it that way, and he uses him as like his to make his cases. But anyway,
the other thing is I want to compound on your point. Sorry for
no, it's okay.
I'll compound on your point about Manifestelle. She doesn't even know about the problems with boys in extremist Mormon communities. I guarantee it. And if
because it's not in the reality show. It's not in the the reality show itself it's like you said in the past about the way that stories are told. This reality show, as most reality shows are done, they are from the female perspective for the women that are watching. So they're going to exclude the man. Like there's an anecdote in the show where, and I skipped past that scene because I didn't think it was very important, except, Manifestelle was trying to she's using it to like make her point that men use religion to control women. But it was basically a scene where the wife, this Mormon wife, goes to an event because she's a photographer, and she doesn't realize or know that it turns out to be like a Chippendales thing, and she's mortified, and she leaves early because she doesn't want to be around that. And her husband is like you know, he went with her on the trip to do this job, but he wasn't there, and he's like texting her, asking her what's going on, and Manifestelle is basically saying like this man, you know, he's like a medical student or something, like he's going to medical school, so he's going to be a doctor, but this man is like in this girl's business, and that's a problem, right? So, but I mean, ultimately, they were both faithful to each other, like in terms of like she told him like this is what happened, and he's like very understanding. But that's the framing is that he shouldn't be there in the first place,
dripping
right?
poison.
So
No,
yeah,
yes, when you make a commitment, a sexual commitment to another human being, they get to be up in your business. Like, what are you putting on offer, Manifestelle? You can pay my bills and change my diapers and wipe my shitty ass, and you can breathe for me and piss for me, but you don't get to tell me who I fuck. Like, you're not in a relationship. You're just on a life support system. Oh.
mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Well, so I jumped ahead to I believe that this point she's going to talk about the critique of how religion is used to control women's behavior. So let's play this.
The grammar. No, because she respects her own values and her husband and would never put herself in that situation. The fact we are even having this conversation is sad, especially after everything with the temple.
Okay, so basically, he brings up the temple, right? Like, that's very important. That's key to this whole class. He brings
So you
up
actually
the
watched
temple
the
as
video?
a...
You watched what
You-
she's
you-
referring to?
Do you,
No,
no, they don't show it in the show, but this woman. So basically, this show, there's a bunch of girls on TikTok talking about this show, and they're applying the feminist lens to it. Again, they're applying a feminist lens to a show that's applied a feminist lens already, and they're responding to that. You know, like it's one thing I'm realizing about media. Obviously it's all feminist anyway, but this is the reason why feminists reference it all the time. And because what they do is they take it to another level of oppression. So, you know, they'll talk about like, I don't know, like the Little Mermaid, right? The Little Mermaid, if you watch the Little Mermaid, it was feminist already. Like it was, you know, it was like my daddy's telling me what to do and I'm going to do what I want to do. And, you know, and it was all of that was already there. But what feminists today do is they watch that and they apply their feminist lens to that, which was already feminist, and then they take it further. And that's why things have,
it's
so
always
they're like, well, that was really regressive and patriarchal. Like they'll talk about how problematic old, you know, 90s Disney movies were. And if you look at them, they're all progressive for the time. And you just take it to another level.
Yeah,
so that's kind of what's happening here.
It's eternal search for more oppression.
Yeah.
Every time you recognize an oppression, you have to one-up yourself. Like those Scotsmen talking about, I walked to school both ways and driving snow uphill both ways. You know, it's like every generation has to up the perception of oppression. So for this is something that I noticed like 20 years ago, and I pointed out. I said, you know that how I guess the 60s are now the great time of the greatest amount of female oppression. Soon it's going to be the early 2000s. That's the time of the greatest amount of female oppression, because it always moves to about one generation before the current generation is the greatest time of the greatest amount of female oppression. You know, except for the 50s, which I always
that way it's always right around the corner,
like
right?
The 50s
we're not out of the woods yet.
But the 50s seems to be sort of like almost the platonic ideal of female oppression, which I've always found funny. So I'm like, why the 50s? You know, I mean, just specifically the 50s. I mean, you don't go to the 40s. Wouldn't that be more? No, of course, that's World War II, where millions of men were dying. Well, what about the 30s? Oh, that was the Depression, when millions of men were out of work and starving on the streets. Oh, what about the 20s? Well, sometimes, you know, that was the Roaring 20s. It's hard to say that was the time of greatest depression, because more women were in the university than men, I think, in the 20s. What about the 10s? Oh, World War I, one of the worst wars to die in ever. like, and I noticed how it's almost like feminists were looking through the 20th century, and they're like, well, not the first decade, that's a little rough for men, and the second decade, that's World War I, pretty rough for men. It's the third decade. It's hard to say that the flapper era was the height of patriarchy. The third decade, oh, men were dying in the streets. I can't really choose that. That doesn't make sense. Oh, the fourth decade, men dying in war again. And then the first decade that men weren't dying in a depression and out of work in a depression or dying in a war, the feminists latch onto. The first time that men weren't dying to the point where demographics were being shifted, the feminists say, oh, that's the decade. That's the decade. That's the decade of the greatest amount of male oppression of women. And you really should ask yourself, why not any decade before it? Because it was so obviously awful for men every decade prior to the 50s. The 50s was the first decade that there wasn't a significant amount of men dying for economic or
it was a period between wars, basically.
Yeah, it was a period between wars, and the feminists hate it. Like,
Yeah.
ooh, doesn't that say something?
I mean, even then there was the Korean War, but and some other little skirmishes here and there. But yeah, I mean, it was basically a time of relative peace, I suppose.
And where men weren't dying wholesale.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
The first freaking decade of the 20th century. And men weren't like dying in their millions, and then to maintain society, to sacrifice for society, and feminists are like, oh my God, look at that. Men are no longer sacrificing their lives for society. They're so privileged. Men don't even get a break. I mean, if only we hadn't had like a third world war in the 50s, then feminists would have jumped over that decade too. God damn.
All right. Let's listen to more.
A way to control Jen's behavior, like
think about what the people in the temple will think.
And he also tries to turn her into a pick-me by comparing her to another woman. Like,
oh, this other woman doesn't behave like you do. She knows better than to go to Chippendale's show as a married Mormon woman.
Like those two things, right? But I wanted to hone in on the use of the temple, the religion, and the community, specifically the religious community, to control women's behavior.
Yes, that's the point. You are pointing this out as a flaw. It is a feature. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is supposed to develop moral discipline and dignity and personal discipline so that you don't do things to fuck your life up or to fuck other people's lives up or to engage in toxic envy. She's pointing to this. She's saying, oh, look, these people apply external standards to women. Yeah, they probably also have female friendships, which is something that I doubt you know. Manifestelle, do you really think that your friends would help you out if you didn't have clout? I doubt it. So I mean, it's like this is yes, they're applying an external standard. You don't think that men are also not not expected to live up to this external standard?
You're not supposed to do that. And women shouldn't be held to any standard. I mean, women should be denied nothing. Men should be denied everything.
And the other thing is that why is this being made public? Like, this is actually, if you have a conflict with your partner, why is this being aired being broadcast on a network?
Reality TV.
Yeah,
because it's reality TV, which means it isn't real.
I wouldn't even do that. Like,
this is another thing. Like I'm trying to look at this, like how this is affecting, how stuff like this affects the female psyche. Okay. So women love the tea. They like these. That's kind of, and I think there was like a use for that, right? Like if you lived in a community and you wanted to make sure that everybody was like working together to like make the community thrive and keep it safe and protect the children and make sure that no one's gonna go rogue or whatever. And so women, they as like the matriarchs of their or whatever, like the women in the community would sort of watch each other and talk to each other and talk but the problem is that it could turn into something toxic like gossip, and then you get like this reputation destruction and mean girl behavior. But if it's just like any other force, right? If it's used for good, if it's harnessed in the right way, then there's clearly a positive aspect to it, and so what women are drawn to this kind of stuff. They love gossip. Okay. And
Yeah, let's be fair.
there is a
Nobody can deny it.
no, I know. That's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily bad because again, it has a use. If you have someone in your community that is, like I don't know, engaging in secretly bad behavior or whatever, trying to keep her secret, and other people, like women, learn about it, they can share it with each other and say, like, this person is up to this thing or whatever. That's why, like, there's a meme. I think it's like a really funny meme. It's like Russian surveillance. It's called Russian surveillance system, and it's a bunch of old women like on balconies and porches. But I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like that, there is something to that, and it'd be involved with the community. They would call out kids that were maybe like skipping school or up to no good or whatever. There was like a reason for it,
Suspicious people lurking around.
Yeah, they'd be
Maybe.
looking for suspicious behavior. They'd be looking for whatever it is, right? And but like the reason why women are into these kinds of shows is because it is sort of tapping into that thing that women are into, which is essentially gossip, tea, whatever. I forgot where I was going with that, but I was just saying that there is I'm trying to get into the women's psyche, trying to talk about what it is that motivates them. I think it's that, and that is a method of control, but Manifestelle is trying to put it on the men, but it's really going to be the women that do that.
Yes,
like they're the ones that
100%. This is going to be the women that are monitoring each other's behavior. And again, like I honestly, if I remember when we went to the first international conference for men's issues, we were 2014, like myself and a bunch of other women who were involved in men's issues advocacy were being tailed by some group from Vice, like camera crew from Vice. And they sat us down and they interviewed us and they asked me a question like, oh, has your men's rights advocacy improved your sex life? And I'm like, sex life? I'm not shitting you. I am not. I looked at them and I said, that's none of your business.
It's Vice. They
It's
can't
a
help themselves.
completely
It's in the
inappropriate
name.
question. It's a completely inappropriate question. That is none of your business. And I remember I was there with a younger woman called Jess, and she's no longer. I think she had a kid, and that became more of her focus, which is understandable. It's the same thing I think that happened to Cassie and Prim. And she was like looking at me almost like she's gonna maybe answer, but then I was like, no, we don't. No, you don't want to answer that. That's not appropriate. And it's like that's something that women would do for each other in the context of it's they would protect.
Yeah, it's not.
They would look out for each other and say, hey, this is not appropriate. Like, this is personal. This is private. These people aren't interested in your well-being. They want to turn you into a salacious story, so you don't get involved in that. Like, just and like the older and wiser woman would look out for the younger women, not just in terms of them behaving in destructive ways, but also in maybe getting sucked into destructive things. Like there's I was reading War and Peace, and there's I think it's Madame Blavatsky or something, and she actually goes out of her way to prevent the main female character from utterly destroying her life by being seduced by this blackguard. And she had to significantly go out of her way to protect her. And against the girls, the girl was angry. And I'm sure Manifestelle would be like, oh, don't let that old bitch get up in your business. Go fuck this man who's going to take your virginity, take your money, and then fuck off. And then you are going to be a ruined woman. Yeah, just do your wild oats.
That's exactly right. Like, this is why in soap operas, for example, everyone is doing really like bad things. Like, they're obviously immoral characters, like running throughout doing ridiculously like messed up social stuff with each other. And the women that watch, that's what they're keying in on, because they're like, and they'll talk to their friends about like the characters on the show and the stuff they did. They're making the same kinds of, they're creating the same kinds of like social moral hierarchies in these fictional scenarios that they would with real people. And there is a value to it. I'm not saying it's just bad or it's just useless, but it can be it can be sort of, aimed in the wrong direction or used to distract or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Well, the point is that these social standards don't exist just to hurt women.
yeah.
They are, in fact, rules in order for women to navigate the point in your life when you're the stupidest and most hormonally driven.
Yeah.
Right? The older women, they've been through that. They've experienced that. And they know the stupid choices you make when you're in that situation. And they will advise you, hey, don't reveal details of your sex life device. There be dragons. Like stuff like that. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is there's a commentator in Katie, and she says, female friendships, that's a hard one. I wish I had some. Yeah, well, here's the problem. In order for women to have strong, supportive friendships with each other, there needs to be external standards, right? They need to have these external standards. They need to have these community controls. They need to learn to overcome their jealousy, their envy, and these kind of destructive impulses and the stupidity of youth in order to develop these things. Like, you look in traditional cultures, women support each other and they are happy at each other's successes. They celebrate each other's successes. That's because they're living up to these external standards of dignity and discipline and being good friends. What I've noticed is that whatever we allow women to do to men, eventually they do to other women, which is destructive to their relationships with other women. So it's like, yeah, you want female friendships back. We have to start going back, or at least reconsidering external standards for women so that they learn to control the negatives of female behavior. And yeah, there are negatives to female behavior. I don't like saying that masculinity or femininity is toxic, but there are negatives to both. And we still have a mythology and expectations that men overcome the negatives of their behavior. But where's that for women? It's infinite license to self-destruction. Okay. All right, let's how much more do we have? Because
I know we're getting close to the end here, or at least let's play the rest of this and then I'll jump to her sort of conclusions. Or we can jump ahead actually to Deconstruction of Biblical Patriarchy, 2711. So we'll go to right here, I guess. All right. This is, again, I believe Dr. Beth Allison Bass is a feminist that wrote about this. So take that as it is.
Okay. And yes, God was a woman and now God is a man. And at the end of the day, God still wouldn't want this for us. Okay.
So she literally says God was a woman. I don't know if that just tells you everything, but let's keep going. Sure.
Barr writes, the biblical explanation for the birth of patriarchy, the first human sin, built the first human power hierarchy. And apparently, among historians, everyone already knew that patriarchy was a result of the fall. And according to Barr, the patriarchy that continues to appear in biblical text is a mere accommodation to the reality of the times and culture. It is not a reflection of the divine ideal for humanity. Patriarchy is created by people, not ordained by God. Before the fall, both Adam and Eve submitted to God's authority. After the fall, because of sin, women would now turn first to their husbands, and their husbands, in the place of God, would...
That's not true.
Bad? Like, why do you fight this so much? Like, really, what is wrong with just listening to men and occasionally doing what they say? What is wrong with that? What do you think you're submitting to now? And the other thing is that when you're in power, ladies, are you going to step up and take care of men? Right? And if you don't, what do you think happens to a culture in which the people in power don't give a crap about half the population? It craters. It dies. Yeah, sure, you can take authority, ladies, but with that authority is the expectation of protecting and providing for men. Right? Do you want that? And maybe you should be sacrificing for men, like they say Christ sacrificed for the church. That men in the so-called patriarchal system have to sacrifice for women like Christ sacrificed for the church. Maybe you need to take that role. Are you prepared? Are you prepared? Otherwise, all you're constructing is a disaster, right? There was never a situation where men just had power. There was always the expectation of sacrifice in conjunction with the power. And I would argue it was the power that justified the sacrifice. So people would say, well, men, you're in power, therefore you are obligated to sacrifice. And often that power really wasn't very functional at all, right? Because of women's social power, right? So, I mean, sure, Manifestelle, you want to be in charge? Are you going to sacrifice for men? Are you going to protect and provide for men? No, you're not. You're just going to be a worthless tyrant.
So I'm gonna let her finish this, and then I'll say something.
Rule over them.
Okay, I'm gonna go back. So she's basically using this to make the claim. Let me just finish this.
Because of sin, women would now turn first to their husbands, and their husbands, in the place of God, would rule over them.
All right. The patriarchy that continues to appear in biblical text is a mere accommodation to the reality of the times and culture. It is not a reflection of the divine ideal for humanity. That is a lie. Now, of course, you can like construct your particular situation however you like, but just don't misrepresent what the biblical text says. So like if you don't want to live in a patriarchal system, whatever, you do you, okay? But just don't lie to me about what it says. Patriarchy is created by people, not ordained by God. Before the fall, both Adam and Eve submitted to God's authority. After the fall, because of sin, women would now turn first to their husbands, and their husbands in the place of God would rule over them. Okay, that's not wrong. That's wrong for a number of reasons. Number one, God made Eve from Adam's rib, essentially from his side is how it's described, as his partner. But she is supposed to, like, help him. Adam is the leader in that situation, but okay. I know that not everyone here is religious, so I'm not trying to feed you a line to convince you of anything, but I'm saying Manifestelle and the person who wrote this is lying about what it says, okay? So the natural order, according to Christianity, is God, then Christ. This is after, Jesus came, then man, then woman, then children, okay? But in the time of the garden, there was no Jesus, obviously. Eve was supposed to essentially serve Adam. Now, when I say that, I don't mean as a slave. That I mean like she's his helpmate. And in fact, and we talked about this on the show before, Eve is a little bit, or she's supposed to be kind of a, let's say, how would I put it? Adversarial helpmate. Does that make sense? Like she would like contend or challenge Adam, but he ultimately was the guy responsible for Eve. And so when we get to the point of the fall, Adam and Eve both sinned, but their sins are different. So what is Eve's sin? Does anyone, I'll just, what do you think, Allison? What's Eve's sin in the Garden of Eden?
Pride?
Well, essentially listening to the snake, which is the serpent, which is, you could say it's pride, because the serpent said what to Eve? He said, if you eat from the tree of knowledge, you will be like God. So it was essentially, he tricked her into thinking, hey, he basically said, look, why would you want to just be a woman like working for this dude? Why don't you eat from the tree of knowledge and then you'll be like God. You'll be better than Adam. You'll be above everything, right? And so Eve was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And her sin was doing that, was listening to the serpent and eating of the fruit of knowledge, or the tree of knowledge. What's Adam's sin? Well, Adam's sin is that he did not take responsibility. When God confronted them, Adam passed the buck to Eve and said, oh no, she made me do it. So it was a couple things too. He didn't, when she said, hey, you want to eat from this fruit? It's from the tree of knowledge. I ate it and we didn't die, because God said, if you eat of the tree of knowledge, you will die, right? And Adam was like, okay, I'll do it. And that was his mistake. So they both made mistakes and they both failed to take responsibility, and God threw them out of the Garden of Eden. And that is essentially the way that it's showing what happens when you don't follow the natural order as said by God. What she is saying here is that Adam being the leader of Eve is completely constructed, and it's not really part of the message. And it's because she doesn't want that to be the case, right? So it's like I said, Manifestelle could just live her life the way she wants to, but she chooses to come after the Bible and try to like alter this narrative. And look, I'm not saying I'm an expert in this at all. I'm just saying what I remember about the story and what I remember about the meaning, of the fall and the sin, the original sin that Adam and Eve committed. And by the way, when Christ came, he basically redeemed both of them.
Okay.
He redeemed, like Mary redeemed Eve and Christ redeemed Adam at the resurrection. But that's a separate thing. So
okay, I just want to point something out. Now, this establishes a hierarchy of authority, but there's another hierarchy of sacrifice. And I think that I don't even know if children rank on the hierarchy of sacrifice, but Christ sacrifices for everybody. Men sacrifice for women. Maybe women sacrifice for kids. I guess not. I don't know. Maybe that was omitted.
Like women would sacrifice for children, sure. Yeah.
Well,
There will be an expectation, but like men would sacrifice for children too. Like it's like the higher up you are, the more you're expected to sacrifice. So Christ sacrificed for everyone.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
So it's a hierarchy based on sacrifice. That's the point that I wanted to make. You get your authority through sacrifice. You understand that? And I was just thinking, like, what kind of world would Manifestelle create if she was in charge? Like, everybody, she would have the authority and she would make everyone sacrifice for her. And could you imagine a world full of women like Manifestelle? Like, it would be a disaster, because the only reason they would have the authority and the only thing they would use it for is to make other people sacrifice for them. And that's the problem. Like, literally, this is the keyhole that women need to understand. You get authority through sacrifice, right? That's where it comes from, especially with human beings, and especially with Christianity. The higher, more authority you have, where does it come from? From your sacrifice. That's it.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from somewhere else. It comes from your sacrifice, your willingness to sacrifice for others. So if you want to have the authority of men, you have to be prepared to sacrifice for men. Right? You have to be willing to say, men go first. I have this power. I'm going to use it to help men. I'm going to use it to give them a voice. I'm going to use it to protect them in whatever way I can. Maybe it won't look like the way men protect women. Men protect women physically, but that doesn't mean men don't need their own type of protection, their own type of social protection. Because women like Manifestelle can destroy the perception of men as being legitimate parts of a culture, of a society, of a community. That's what these women do. Okay, by the way, is my sound okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, good.
You changed it? Yeah.
I changed this. Actually, I moved the I've been having some fun with my microphone. I moved my microphone closer to me, so I was worried that it might be too loud. But, if it's good, then it's good. But that's my point. Authority, sacrifice equals authority. Sacrifice equals authority. And she doesn't understand that. And all the women who want authority in the context of the Christian tradition don't understand that. And I think that's one reason why the Christian tradition is the foundation for a world-spanning civilization, because it made that explicit connection between sacrifice and authority. You don't have authority because you're the biggest dude on the block. You have authority because you care enough about everyone to sacrifice yourself in the most horrific way possible for their benefit. Right? That is the model of masculinity in Christianity. It's an incredibly powerful one and incredibly beneficial to everybody. And I mean, I'm not here as a Christian saying that. I'm saying that as somebody looking through the lens of how societies construct themselves and organize themselves. It's a very powerful tool. And all of the women who are saying, well, we should have authority. Okay, first you sacrifice. Then that is where your authority comes from. Otherwise, what you are creating is not authority, at least not in the Christian tradition. Maybe it is in the tradition of all of the incredibly brutal societies that have come before, but then you're dealing with those rules. And guess what those rules are? The biggest dude on the block makes the rules, right? If you don't want to buy into the system that sacrifice sanctifies authority, then you're buying into the system that force does, and you are going to lose in that system, ladies. All right.
Yeah. All right. So I know that we've been going for a bit, but I can like break down a couple of different talking points she brings up, and you can tell me if you want me to jump to one of those. So she talks about, and this is something I kind of skipped, but I forgot about it, but I thought it was interesting. The fact that more and more men are going into the church and more women are leaving the church. And I think that it is related to what's happening now. Like in my church, a lot of new converts, most of them have been men, especially young guys, like in their 20s. And of course, Manifestelle sees this as men desperately trying to cling to power and authority over women by going to the church, whereas women who are leaving the church are seeking, like, liberation. And that's her conception of this. Another section,
Liberation from the
liberation.
system in which sacrifice equals authority to what? The system where money equals authority? Where force equals authority? Like, I
Well,
don't feel like being liberated from the system where sacrifice equals authority. I think we should keep that. Maybe we should even see if there's an even more pro-human evolution of that we could look into, right? Actually, you know what? Come to think of it, the intersectionality might be a corruption of that, if you think about it, because
oh yeah.
they're saying that vulnerability or pain or this kind of thing equals authority in the intersectional system. Well, I mean, it's not true. It's actually conscious, chosen sacrifice that equals authority, not just having been sacrificed. But that's I guess sort of like a philosophical discussion for another day. This is not Manifestelle is not worthy of this one.
No. And this Manifestelle's claim, somebody said that sounds like an Orthodox thing. It's not. Manifestelle's claim is that men are entering the church broadly, and most churches in the United States are Protestant in like record numbers, and women are leaving. I don't know if it's in record numbers, but and if you think about it, it kind of lines up with the political split that's happened with men and women as well. Women have become like way more leftist and therefore more atheistic and materialistic, whereas men are like seeking meaning because they're not getting it in the world because it's been taken from them. So that's one of the reasons why, for example, Jordan Peterson was so big, because he was giving them a sense of meaning, and now they're re-entering, or they're entering the churches.
But now Peterson is a little in his grandpa on the internet phase, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying, but that's what made him popular at the time. And people were always saying, "Why are you popular with men?" And it's like, because he was giving men something that no one else was. That's basically what it was, or at least not anyone else prominent was. So
yeah, okay. All right.
But anyway,
finish this off, eh? Oh, I used
yeah. So the other thing is that she brings up is she talks about let me see. The paradox of woman's spirituality needing to control men's behavior through fear. The exploration. I think I'm on that part. Oh yeah, no, I read that bit already. Analysis of how Paul's teachings, Apostle Paul, have been misused to exclude women from leadership, highlighting the need for contextual interpretation.
This is all bullshit. Like this, it's all basically the same refrain.
Yeah.
Christianity made sacrifice the source of authority. If you want authority in the Christian tradition, then you need to sacrifice, which means women need to spend time thinking about how they can protect and provide for men. And like, again, that doesn't like women are going to be, become Xena, warrior princess, and protect and provide for men physically, but there are ways. And somebody in the the vertical chat is suddenly become less like special for some reason. Um, Peter Houston says, I seem to remember women in the Victorian age say that women protect men in the social realm and men protect women in the political realm. Yeah, that used to be the expectation, that women protect in the domestic sphere. So they would protect men when they got sick, when they were injured. They would protect men socially. They would protect men's role, with full awareness that women can destroy men's role. Let's be frank, we've seen it. So I mean, this would be the expectation of sacrifice for women, and I think that that's a lot of the reason why women as a group, like the opinion of women as a group on the franchise was don't do it. People don't realize that, but more women were against franchise for women than men were. Right. And
Mhm.
they were the biggest impediment to actually getting the franchise any quicker than it was. There's a whole bunch of women who said this is social destruction. And that's why, because it takes women away from, well, first it takes a lot of the trust out of the relationship between men and women, but it starts to divert women from recognizing their expectations of protecting and providing for men towards a competition with men, which incidentally men don't really, they it's like a one-sided competition. Women bring the
Yeah.
competition, men just bring the confusion. So they knew that this was something that was not a good idea. So it's interesting, isn't it? Like women at one point were like, yeah, no, we shouldn't have the vote. And then essentially the very small minority of women who were for it pushed the issue. Male legislators were much more amenable to it than the majority of women. So eventually it happened. And then afterwards, the women who were like, oh, well, now that we have the vote, we got to vote because otherwise the crazies will be the only ones voting. So
Yeah.
like this is probably from that belief that women, and they explicitly said that. In fact, what Peter just said is from a response to the suffrage by women. It's that they trust men to represent them at the ballot box, as men should be able to trust them to represent them in the home. So
Mhm.
it was always this kind of mutual expectation of sacrifice and different spheres of authority. It was never the way Manifestelle is presenting it. And incidentally, if Manifestelle wants authority in the system, she has to sacrifice, because sacrifice that sanctifies authority in the Christian system. And that is my opinion outside looking in.
Yeah.
What she actually wants is authority in a system of force. Well,
Exactly.
you don't want to open.
She's using like the Bible to try to make the rhetorical case for
Yeah.
giving women authority in church without understanding that like like I said, like you said, like it is a byproduct of evolution itself. It's sort of like what we were made to be, and it's putting it down on paper, you could say. Or it's the other way around. Like, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I'm saying that there's a reason why every religion, because she does talk about this too, not just Christianity, although she's targeting
Mm.
Christianity, but she relates it to Islam, to Buddhism, to Hinduism. She claims that all
Every
of
single.
them are patriarchal and they're all like basically men using these systems to control women. So it's not even just limited to Christianity. She even extends it to Buddhism.
Yeah.
So
And you, at that point, you have to ask, okay, so patriarchy is every advanced society. Could there be some
is there a
logic?
reason for that?
The
Yeah.
reason for that,
Yeah.
Manifestelle, and maybe the reason is because there are too many women like you. You get authority and you use it for yourself and you destroy everything. You get authority and you just go in, you kick sand in people's face, steal their lunch, shit in shit in their poopery, and you just throw your weight around. Because you don't understand that sacrifice sanctifies authority. Like
Yeah.
authority comes from sacrifice. All
So
right.
somebody in the vertical chat said something I wanted to respond to really quick. Haley said, "Now men are starting to hate women and think we are all the same because of the destruction that's happened. It sucks." I promise you, I don't think men hate women. Even the ones who say they do don't. and all you got to do is be nice to them. This is one thing that women don't. They're lied to about this by feminists, because when feminists claim that men live to essentially be tyrants over women, they are saying that women can't possibly tame that person or make them see them as, you know, like they can't do anything about it. And I'm telling you, women have, and they still have, tremendous power over men's emotional state. Like look at it like this, okay? Somebody said this too in the chat earlier. They said that there was a Victorian saying that, you know, men operate in the political realm, that's where their strengths are at, and women operate in the social realm. And I mean, that's obvious. Like, we've talked about that a
But
lot on the
nothing has
show.
changed. That
And
has not
nothing's changed. It's still the same thing. Social media is Call of Duty for women, and it's just a matter of like how you use it, ladies. But the thing I was going to point out is there is a reason why football teams that have really great cheerleading squads do better. It's not just because the football players are, you know, like have a great sense of sportsmanship and teamwork and they're athletes and all of that, but because there are women that are essentially, you know, trying to get them to do better. They're giving them buffs, you could say, if I'm going to put it in video game context. Look at it like that. That's what I'm saying. These women buff the men. Look at a World War II, when men would have their girlfriend's photo in their, you know, in their pocket or whatever, or in their airplane. It was essentially to inspire them. This is what women do for men when they want to. And a woman who has a man's back, you know, the man can do like way more than he normally would. I mean, I'm just saying it's a bonus. I can give you another example. There's a guy, one of the persons I've been trying to get on the show for a long time, and for whatever reason she's just been too busy, is Rachel Wilson. Rachel Wilson wrote this book called Occult Feminism, which I read, and I thought it was pretty interesting, and I wanted to talk to her about it. She hasn't been able to make the time to come on the show for whatever reason. But I noticed that her husband, Andrew Wilson, he goes on all these podcasts and he debates people, and Rachel Wilson is the biggest cheerleader of him that I've ever seen. And I'm like, this is why he's successful, because she is in his corner 100%. And that's what it means to be like, you know, like the helpmate to someone, to a man. That's what it means. She doesn't feel oppressed by him, right? But she wants him to succeed, because if he succeeds, they both succeed and their children succeed.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. So
yeah, and I think
anyway.
I mean, my personal approach is probably less traditional. I would say that you're right, men don't hate women. I don't think it's in men to hate women. And that's what's really unfair about this situation. And it really doesn't, like, to me, it doesn't matter if men hate. What matters is if women
They're just
hate.
angry, and
Yeah,
I
they're
think
just
that
angry.
it's understandable, right?
Yeah, but if
But they're not
women
hateful.
take responsibility, if you want the authority, or even if at this point we have to, because there's a whole bunch of women who have demanded the authority, so women now have it. So if we have this authority, then look at it and ask yourself, what do men need from us right now? And believe
Yeah.
me, that the hatred, the anger dissipates as soon as a man is in the presence of a woman who says, what do you need? Like, what can I do to make this better for you? It's gone. It's all you need to do. And honestly, you will find that you are never more yourself when you stand up for another person. You know, and you know, you don't have to do it in an emasculating way, like, oh, I'm better than you. Just do it as in, this is a fellow human being. This is a fellow citizen who is in need of something that you can provide. And men are deserving of this. Look at what they've constructed. Look at how they've protected and provided for women. You know, it's just having their back and being grateful for it and doing what you can to serve. And then there's no hate, there's no further hatred as far as I can tell. Right?
No.
There's no further hatred after that point. Like,
So
and
I think it would be funny. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, no, I think that, you know, if you're I think that there's a room for flexibility as well. Like, you can also be a woman who's more of a go-getter and have a man who supports you. That's fine. Like whatever way it works, right? Just as long as you don't have contempt for each other at the end of the day. And you are sacrificing for each other, and you don't expect authority without sacrifice.
Yeah.
That I think that is absolutely critical. And for
Yep.
too long, we've had this gigantic institutional group whispering poison into women's ears. Entitlement, resentment, beliefs that are false, like Manifestelle's belief that Mormon men aren't held to a standard. Oh my God, are Mormon men held to a standard? And when you see the extremism in Mormonism, it's men and boys who are thrown out because they don't manage to live up to the standard. That's what I would call the Mormon church for. Like, how much are you riding your men? Like, how much are you putting on their shoulders? If your extremists are dumping their boys off in the middle of nowhere because they listen to, I don't know, Journey, then what kind of pressures are you all putting on your men and boys? And have you ever thought about that? But I mean, they're a very successful community. They seem happy. That's the criticism I would have for them. But they're certainly doing better than secular communities. So take that
Yeah.
with a grain of
I
salt.
think Mormon men are they're held to standards above that of tiger moms holding their kids. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's tough. But the guy, like I said, I knew a guy come from a Mormon family, and when I heard about his life, it sounded like he was fucking James Bond. Like he was in the Air Force and he did all this other stuff. He was a tailor and he was really good at it. He did these crazy things. And so yeah, I mean, I believe it. But I'd like to leave you guys with some of Apostle Paul's sayings because they're funny. That's why. These are the things that he said that really upsets feminists. In fact, Apostle Paul is supposedly the most controversial of any of the people who wrote in the new, who have testimonies in the New Testament. And I thought it was worth sharing because I think you might get a chuckle out of it, maybe. So here is 1 Corinthians 11:3. He says, "But I want you to realize that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is man, and the head of Christ is God." So he's basically laying out what I said that Christians believe the natural order is. Again, feel about it whatever you like. Then there's this one, which is all really pisses off feminists too. "Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, also wives should submit to their husbands in everything." Okay, then there's this one. "Women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission, as the law says. If they want to inquire about something, they should ask their own husbands at home, for it is disgraceful for a woman to speak in the church." 1 Corinthians 14:34-35. Well, and what I learned about this too is that this was shortly after the church began, like the Christian church started, and women were kind of in a sense liberated already. Like they had recently been sort of liberated from whatever came before, according to some, like Rome, and they became really loud and vocal in church. Like they were distracting from the services because all of a sudden they were liberated and it was time, to get their voices heard. And that's why Apostle Paul was like, "Can you ladies please shut up while we're doing this?" And then the last one is, "A woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not the one deceived. It was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. But women will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith, love, holiness, and with propriety." So yeah, definitely the most controversial of anybody, but I think it's funny. So
Okay,
anyway,
so what I would argue again is that the whole concept of this is simply for women to step aside with their social power and allow men to develop their skills and abilities that evolved over millions of years to enhance the system. And again, this authority and this expectation that men be able to speak doesn't come without a corresponding expectation of sacrifice. So if women want to have this role of authority, then they have to learn to sacrifice first. Sorry about the moaning and crying. My dog is he's been sitting quietly, but then he stopped sitting quietly. So.
I got a Rumble rant, and then I guess we can wrap it up. So NovaFan21 gave us $1 and says, whenever I hear someone claiming men are hating women, all I'm hearing is men are holding women accountable because women still refuse to do that themselves. Thank you for that, NovaFan. Yeah, it's hard, like, when you're not accustomed to criticism. Criticism sounds like hatred, but I don't think that's true. So
I did notice another comment that someone said that women want to continue to choose to be secondary because being primary requires sacrifice. Let's face it. Okay, what the heck are you doing? Oh, you're squishing your ball. It requires sacrifice. Sorry.
It's all right. Just
okay. It requires sacrifice to be primary, right? And they don't want to do that, so they want to be regarded as primary, but continue to just exist in a secondary capacity. Well, that doesn't work. That's not functional. Yeah, you can't do that. It's not fair. All right. The doggo is a little bit verklempt, shall we say? So can we? Yeah,
I'm done. That's it.
Oh, we're done. Okay, there we go then. All right. So, all right. So if you enjoy this show and you'd like to support the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/support. Okay.
You just can't get through this. Like, you just get distracted way too easy.
Okay. Well, he's very distracting. It's hard. He's like, he knows how to hit my buttons. He's okay. Shh, quiet. All right. So if you want to support the show, please go to feedthebadger.com/support and put a few shekels in the hat. Every bit helps. Definitely. Like, I really appreciate, of course, the large supporters really help us get our goal at the end of the month. But don't think if you're putting in $5, $10, it doesn't matter. It really does. I really appreciate it, especially in times like these. So feedthebadger.com/support. And if you want to send us a message and a tip, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And yeah, all right. So back to you, Brian.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. You can find a link to the full video in the description so you can watch it yourself. And then, let us know what you think. I know that we had to bounce around because it's like all of her videos are needlessly long. But anyway, and please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame. We do videos every day, so hopefully we'll see you guys in the next one. But subscribe to the channel if you don't mind, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one. Have a good rest of your day, guys.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.